Hey, what's up, film fans? I'm Fanboy Philly. Welcome to Fanboy Philly Reviews. Today I'm reviewing a film that was suggested by a viewer last week, and that is The Post, directed by Stephen Spielberg. And it is about when the New York Times and Washington Post got a hold of parts of what were called the Pentagon Papers that detailed secrets that the government were keeping from the American public for 20 years and then published them. The film shows how Daniel Ellsberg, a military analyst, after hearing Secretary of State Robert McNamara say one thing in private about what was going on in Vietnam, to saying the complete opposite to the press and the American people. And he became disillusioned and then photocopied files from a study of previous military conflicts and the current Vietnam War that detailed how the current and past administrations kept information from the American people to mislead them about what was happening during those conflicts. He first takes it to the New York Times, who published part of it before Nixon had a federal judge put an injunction to stop them from continuing. After this, Ben Bradlee from the Washington Post wanted to locate where the remaining papers were and how to find them. Eventually, Ellsberg turned these papers over to Ben Bagdikian, one of Bradlee's reporters, and Bagdikian goes straight to Bradlee at the Post. Then begins the journey of these papers through many discussions and debates between Bradlee and Katharine Graham, the new owner of the Post, and her advisors and legal team, about how to deal with this and whether or not to print. This was an all-star cast featuring Meryl Streep as Katharine Graham, who just inherited the Washington Post from her late husband. Tom Hanks played Ben Bradlee, the editor. Bob Odenkirk plays the reporter Ben Bagdikian. Bruce Greenwood appears as the Secretary of Defense, Robert McNamara. And it also stars Bradley Whitfield and David Cross. One of the main points in this film is freedom of the press, and if lines should be drawn when the government is involved as far as national security. This is one of the main reasons why Spielberg became obsessed with the script and rushed to make the film, as the film is from 2017, at a time where the media was being accused of making fake news. To me, the beginning of the film is kind of jumbled and confusing, as during the middle of all the controversy, we see scenes where Katharine was meeting with advisors after she recently took over the Post and how they are going public and with the company on the stock market. It wasn't until later on in the film that I realized there were two stories going on at once that were both very important to the telling of the story. It's not just a story about whether the media can or cannot print something, but it is also about a woman finding her power as she is put in a position of choosing what to do, a decision that will affect not just her future, but the future of her newspaper, the press as a whole, as well as set an example to women that they can make a difference. The tone and look of the film were similar to other historical period pieces such as JFK, All the President's Men, Nixon, and that was what helped me connect with the film, as JFK is one of my favorite films. Yes, at times it's hard to follow as they move from one thing to another, but the further you go into the story, the more your questions are answered. They did not go into specifics on the Pentagon Papers, but that was not as important as the fight between the government and the press, as well as the underlying story of Katharine Graham and her fight to be taken seriously as a woman of business with a voice of her own, as she is the one who can make the call whether or not to print the story. This aspect of the film was a little vague until I watched an interview with Spielberg and members of the cast where they talked about how this is just as much the Katharine Graham story as the story of the Pentagon Papers. When the Washington Post and New York Times go to the Supreme Court to decide the future of the papers, the story, and if they should be charged with treason, newspapers all over the country start printing stories of the case and detailing what is going on. When the decision is reached from the Supreme Court, one of the secretaries at the Post answers the phone and reports to everyone else that they won and repeats the verdict from Chief Justice Black, at the end of which comes the line, "The press is responsible to the governed, not the governors." And that's taken from Justice Black's ruling. Thus, recalling that the Constitution protects the press from being blocked by the government. The ending of this film kind of makes me ask if they intended to do a sequel, as they show someone at the end looking out a window into another window and then report a break-in at the Watergate Hotel. This is a film where after I watched it, I had to do some research to understand what was going on and, the basic parts of the story. But that isn't a bad thing, as it taught me a little bit more of the history that I was unfamiliar with. So one of the main intents of this film, I find, is to find out more history of what's going on at that time, the relevance it holds in our time. So from a historical standpoint, I would say this movie should be checked out, as political as it is. Thank you for joining me, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the show and hit that like button. And don't forget to ring the notification bell so you'll know when the next video is posted. And if you have a suggestion for a film for me to review, leave it in the comments below and I will add it to my list, as I want to know what you want to watch. And if you've seen the film, let us know in the comments of that as well. And as always, take care of yourself, be good to the ones you love, and I'll catch you later.